Thanks to our 3 draft picks, as Mel knows, it doesn't get any better than this. Welcome to the 67th Annual National Football League Annual Selection Meeting. We decided to invite a few friends of ours to watch. Also, in the green room, a few friends you'll know pretty soon, like big hulking tackles like Bryant McKinney from Miami, the fun-loving man from Texas, Big Mike Williams, his one-time Longhorn teammate, the coveted Quentin Whammer Jenner. What a great football name. From North Carolina, the versatile defensive end, Julius Sergeant Peppers and his Lowly Hearts Club Band. And the future Houston Texan, quarterback David, you can drive my car. And a quarterback we'll talk about very soon, and whether he goes, Joey Harrington, quarterback Oregon. Does he go early? Do teams trade? Do teams jump? Hey, that's what we're here for. Hello once again, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, and let's translate the annual selection. The NFL draft. With me, as always, is becoming a habit. Mel Kiper. Good to be here, Chris. You doing nothing?
Just relax, a little golf.
Chris Mortensen, this is also becoming a habit.
Yes, it is.
Here we are in the bowels of Madison Square Garden. What is Jimmy Johnson? What in the name of the Florida Keys did Jimmy Johnson do it here? Welcome.
I had to find a tie and some socks.
This is your day. This is wheeling, dealing. You're ready to know these things. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to add. Jimmy's going to add to the merriment. We've got reporters everywhere. And here's what you'll see on the screen. As the day goes and you see David Carr, here's what you'll see on the screen during the day. At the bottom of your TV screen will be a red crawl that'll display the draft order, reveal the current pick. Side will be a totem-like poll menu. You follow your favorite team information. Totem poll device will also have Mel's best available, all sorts of information, including new divisional realignment, which we'll talk about. Finally, on the lower right, you can see which team is on the clock, which in the first round you have 15 minutes to make the pick. But we should say that the Houston Texans did not wait 15 minutes to make the pick. They couldn't wait to go this quickly, and why not? They have signed, or they've come to agreement, drafted for all intents and purposes, David Carr, quarterback, Fresno State. Now, Carr comes with an $11 million signing bonus, 7-year contract worth at least $45 million, could be up to $60 million. What's a few million when you're among friends? But the Houston Texans have hitched their wagon, no pun intended, to David Carr, your franchise quarterback, first pick in the history of the team. It's the 4th time that's ever happened. Do they have their right man in all way, shape, and form, Mel, in your opinion?
Chris, I think they do. He has. And I think if you look at that number 8, you look at Troy Aikman, what he meant to Jimmy Johnson and the Dallas Cowboys, that foundation, that building block that you go and you build around and you get the supporting cast, and all of a sudden, the rest is history, and you're moving into a position to get to a Super Bowl. You see the size. He's been up around 230 pounds, runs under 4'7", bench presses over 400 pounds. So he knows about the physical ability. And keep in mind, here he is with the Bulldogs. He was brought along slowly. 2 years as a backup, then redshirted, gave him time to grasp that sophisticated offensive tackle. Then he became the starter through 4 interceptions his first start at Columbus against Ohio State. Rebounded to have a great year, and then this past season, early in the year, 3 top-level opponents, Colorado, Oregon State, and Wisconsin. David Carr put on a show. Then at the Senior Bowl practice in Mobile, he lit it up. Accuracy, velocity, was Troy Aikman light. Now, that week in Mobile, Joey Harrington was not there, nursing that knee injury, allowed David Carr to seize control at that position. Houston Texans had no choice from that point on to make Carr the number 1 pick, feeling that he can be a potential franchise signal caller. You look at the strengths of David Carr. I alluded to some of these while the highlights were rolling. Look at arm strength. He can whip the ball to any point on the field. The maturity level and the leadership is critical. We talked about Ryan Lee. To go back to the enthusiasm that I thought Rick Meyer lacked, he has it. Consistency throughout the year. I thought he was the best at the college level of anybody. The sidearm delivery is a concern. Unlike Troy Aikman, who snapped it off from the ear, he comes off that right shoulder sidearm. And while he runs under 4'7", he's not going to scramble around and make a lot of plays with his legs. But think more that sidearm delivery, whether we'll have passes batted down at the line of scrimmage, unlike at Fresno State when he didn't, will that be a factor in the NFL?
You know, I've spoken with guys like Phil Simms and Steve Young and Mike Martz yesterday, and they think this delivery thing is a joke. In other words, like Mike Martz says, you do not change a guy's delivery, especially if he's had success. If you do change his delivery, it means you got the wrong guy. And just a note on quarterbacks here, Buffalo, New England, I think things are warming up there, and those talks about Drew Bledsoe. So we got to wait and see here as we approach Buffalo's pick here, whether or not the Patriots and the Bills make this trade. As you know, Bledsoe was the number 1 pick.
Speaking of number 1 picks overall in the draft in 93. Now, Jimmy, you didn't take an expansion team, Dallas, but it almost, they had 25 years of great success, but by the time you got there, the veterans had pretty much played as they could. So you had to do it all over, and the first pick you ever made, not a bad one, by the way.
Right.
Troy Aikman. Okay, now, what let you know right away our first year?
Remember, the starting point for avoid the turnovers and a quarterback that's going to manage the game. So a winning quarterback. Now, you notice I didn't say great quarterback, because you can win Super Bowls. It's been proven you can win Super Bowls without a great quarterback. Now, if you have that quarterback that can manage the game, that can avoid the turnovers, that can make the right decision, and he can make the throws that Troy Aikman makes, the great quarterbacks make, the Joe Montana decisions, then you have something special. But I don't care how good your team is, defense, running backs, special teams, if you don't have a winning quarterback that makes the right decisions, you're not going to win in the NFL.
So does Houston do the right thing? You like what they're doing?
Yeah, everything I hear about him, he's intelligent, he can do it all, but I also like that other guy too, Harrington. He's a pretty talented guy.
Well, we'll be talking about him soon enough as Bob McNair has been very, very busy. His dream has come to fruition. The Houston Texans are in the league, and now they're Paul Cited to kick it off.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to football fans here and around the nation. Welcome to the 2002 National Football League College Player Draft. The first choice in this draft belongs to the NFL's newest addition, the Houston Texans.
Hey, look, Dan, you've waited a couple years since even being awarded the expansion franchise. You might as well wait 7 or 8 minutes and be on the clock. I mean, milk it 8 more minutes. What's the rush after you've gotten in the league? Now, #1 quarterbacks in the common draft since the common draft, the AFL merged or agreed to merge with the NFL in '67. There have been 11. Michael Vick, of course, last year with Atlanta. This is the year we'll really see what he can do. Tim Couch on his way with Cleveland. Certainly Peyton Manning more than on his way with the Colts. Drew Bledsoe we talked about with New England, at least for this minute. Jeff George is one that all the talent didn't really pan out. Picked by Indy, much travel. I mean, he was a Pro Bowl quarterback, but as far as winning on the downside, no. Troy Aikman, yes, he was a winner. He also happened to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. You got everything, Jimmy. You know, Troy Aikman, Steve Wall. We'll get into that later. Vinny Testaverde with the Buccaneers, still in the league. Re-signed with the Jets. He's their starter. The John Elway never played with the Colts, of course. Not a bad career with Denver. Steve Bartkowski was a good arm quarterback. Got the Falcons in the playoffs a couple times. That was it. Jim Plunkett won Super Bowls, not with New England, but with Oakland. And Terry Bradshaw, of course, 4-0 with the Steelers. So as you can see, as it turns out, when you go #1 overall, your success ratio is pretty good. #2, #3 overall, that's where it begins to differ a little bit. But when the guy is #1 overall, it seems to work. But it could have been Joey Harrington #1. Why not? And what do you guys think of the two of them compared?
Chris, I think it was a couple things. I think it allowed David Carr to be the Houston Texans pick and Joey Harrington maybe the Detroit Lions at 3. They could go back to the common opponent of Carr and Harrington. It was Wisconsin. Harrington in that game against the Badgers completed less than 50% of his passes. Struggled some. He still wants the ball in the fourth quarter in his hands, but against Wisconsin at Madison, David Carr put on a show and did a great job, led them to a come-from-behind victory on the road. And I think you go to the Senior Bowl practices, David Carr was there, Joey Harrington was not. And I think when you look at Joey Harrington, you see the key is he doesn't have the 98-mile-an-hour fastball like Brett Favre, but like Brett Favre in the fourth quarter, he wants the ball in his hands, he exudes confidence, he's a winner, and when the chips are on the line and when the game's on the line, he wants to take that team down the field and set up the winning score. And I think that's the key. Look, that clutch performances, the system of Mike Bellotti between the hashes, getting the job done. Talk about a quarterback. Joey Harrington's been thinking about that position and honing those skills since he was born. I think you look at the questionable arm strength. While he doesn't have that ability that Favre does, and certainly Troy Aikman did, certainly David Carr does, he can finesse the ball, he has touch, and his precision is outstanding. I think in Mike Bellotti's offense, he was ideal, and I think he'll be an excellent quarterback for anybody. Whether it's Detroit, Kansas City, forget about it. Joey Harrington is a winner, and I think he'll continue on in the NFL, and has such a success rate.
He wins games, and he wins games late. But that doesn't mean they both couldn't be Super Bowl championship caliber quarterbacks. We have one, a Super Bowl championship caliber quarterback, Ron Jaworski. How about our edge matchup set with Merrill Hodge and Susie Colbert? Good early afternoon, gang.
Hi, Chris. All you have to do is put these two guys in a room together, and there's an immediate debate. But you know what? No matter how much you talk about skills of quarterbacks, sometimes you just have to go with feel, because it's not an exact science. And the guys in Houston fell in love with David Carr, the person. But you've been quite clear saying that you think Joey Harrington is a fantastic quarterback. So compare the two.
And I love David Carr, and I love Joey Harrington. And Mark got me fired up already talking about the 3 coaches he talked to said that you don't change a quarterback's throwing rhythm. Well, he's wrong. You know, you've got to tweak things when they get to the NFL. But in a comparison to David Carr and Joey Harrington, arm strength, clearly David Carr. He's got a gun on his shoulder. He can throw the football. Accuracy, no question. Joey Harrington can make all the difficult throws, a more accurate passer. Mechanics, Joey Harrington, flawless. The guy sets up in the pocket, great pocket awareness. Both these guys will look down the gun barrel. They're tough. They will take the hit and deliver the football, and that's that pocket presence. They both have great awareness in the pocket. And although David Carr may deliver the ball a little bit low in his delivery, what he can do is move around a little bit to find that lane. That will make up for that low delivery. I got to get back on more because he gets me all fired up early in the show. You know? We'll get to more a little later. But Harrington, one of the big question marks has been his arm strength. And we have to dispel something right now. Arm strength is not the ability to throw the ball down the field. That is about anticipation. Harrington has that. He has great anticipation. In fact, in the National Football League, if the ball is in the air for over 45 yards, safeties in this league are going to pick you off. Arm strength is that 18-yard comeback on the wide side of the field, and you've got to stick that throw. He can make that throw. Arm strength is not a question for Harrington. He has the whole package. I love the kid. Yeah, and remember this, in the National Football League, those hash marks move in a little bit, so you do have to make that throw to the outside.
Absolutely. Don Capers and offensive coordinator Chris Palmer haven't been shy about giving young QBs the start who have a chance to show he can deliver early on, Chris.
All right, gang, thank you very much. And so now the debate will raise, but you know what? It could be like the commercial. Great taste, let's fill it. I mean, they could both be correct answers. Now let's ask, what's heating up? Look, Carolina is picking 2, and we know they're going to go Peppers. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that pick, obviously. But look, Carolina's not drafting there. Detroit's not drafting 3, and Buffalo, barring trade, not drafting 4 by accident. They need quarterbacks. So what's going to happen with Joey Harrington? Will he go with one of these guys who currently start? Chris Winkie, Mike McMahon entering both their second seasons in the NFL, and Alex Van Pelt, a guy who we like a lot, but maybe isn't a Super Bowl guy. A guy who's maybe certainly a couple steps above those two. Will we see Harrington go to one of these 3 more?
Well, I think you look at Detroit. I'll be surprised if Harrington doesn't go in that 3rd spot. And I'm talking about with the Lions taking him, or Washington could trade up there, or somebody else who has a desire for Harrington. I think Harrington goes number 3. Even though I know there are some teams that worry about a guy who's called a system quarterback. Great intangibles, good size. Mike Bellotti runs a great system. That's wonderful, but the skills also have to be there in case, hey, a coach does get fired in this league once in a while, and now you got a different system.
Is that true, Jimmy? Coaches get fired?
Not me. Hey, you know, the consensus around the league, and I've talked to everybody around the league, it is split between the two, but the consensus is these guys, they're slam dunks. It's not a Ryan Leaf. It's not a Rick Meyer. You know, these guys can play. Now, the only thing is there's a difference of opinion of which one's the best.
But I did talk to a team yesterday, a team that I think knows quarterbacks, who said they had a 4th-round grade on Harrington, and that shocked me.
We have time to debate this about 10 years, but meanwhile, there's no debate about the first pick of the draft, the 67th one. To the podium.
With the first choice in the 2002 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select David Carr, quarterback from Fresno State.
Now, how can you prove that here? It's not like this is a surprise. Hey, look, 6'3", as Mel talked about, 46 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year. I don't care what level you're playing at. I mean, that's 70 TD passes, 23 picks for your career. So with the winning, I'm not even talking about yards, what kind of offense, over 300, 10 of the last 11 games. That's a pretty good ratio no matter what league you play in. And about the human being, David Carr, there can be no debate. What a person to build a franchise around, guys.
I think that's the key. I think, Chris, when you look at a quarterback like Joey Harrington, we talk about leadership, and we go back, and I'll tell you, if I didn't think Joey Harrington and David Carr play, I'd tell you, I think they would be overrated. I'd push them down to 30th, 50th, and Jeff George 84th, Meyer 30th. I don't see anything with Harrington or Carr that you can't say is a question mark in terms of them becoming a quality starting quarterback. Sure, you can say Carr, the sidearm delivery. You can say Harrington doesn't have the gun. There are a lot of quarterbacks who don't have tremendous arm strength and win Super Bowl. So to me, if I thought they were overrated, I'd tell you. I don't see that happening with these two. I think they're going to both be solid or much better than that at the pro level. And I think when you look at Carr and Harrington 3-4 years down the road, you are not going to call any one of these two players a bust or a disappointment.
I want to go back to that sidearm delivery stuff that Jaws is taking some shots here now. You know, Mike Martz has a master's in biomechanics, and he pointed out, and this is consistent with a lot of people I've talked to, this sidearm delivery, listen, you don't see baseball pitchers come over the top. Biomechanically, it's okay to be. Kurt Warner's down there. Steve Young was down there. You can change footwork, you can change your leverage, your knee flexion. You don't mess with that delivery if he's had success.
Sonny Jurgensen was below there, right? I don't know how he got that out. He was pretty good the last.
Bernie Kosar.
Well, there have been many. So David Carr with a wife, Melody, a young son, and how about them Texans? They've got their quarterback. I had to do it. Let's go to our edge matchup set, analyze a little mechanics of a young man who's the first pick in the draft. Okay?
And Chris, since he came into the spotlight, that's been the big debate about David Carr. Should you change a quarterback's mechanics? Go for it.
Well, first of all, biomechanics, Mort's throwing all these big words at me. Hey, I studied kinesiology at Youngstown State. I can handle those big words. But clearly, when you look at David Carr, there is a flaw in that motion. Now, the comparison a lot of people are making, David Carr, Troy Aikman. And yes, they are like in stature, velocity. They can make all the throws. But there certainly are some differences in the way they deliver the football. Focus on the release point of David Carr in comparison to Troy Aikman. Aikman releases the ball high and close to his ear. Carr releases it closer to the shoulder level and away from his body. Carr's release point is clearly low. I believe this has to be a concern at the NFL level. Now let's take a look at Carr's drop from center in comparison to the Rams' Kurt Warner. Warner keeps his left foot offset behind him and never picks it up. He simply corkscrews it into the ground and pushes off with it to get depth. Carr picks his left foot up and puts it down in the same place. It's a wasted step or false step that is of no use to him. Carr does have outstanding arm strength and anticipation. Here, he will make an anticipation throw down the middle while stepping into a stunting defensive lineman. These are the kinds of throws he will have to make on a consistent basis in the NFL. David Carr has a terrific long-term future in the National Football League. But, and here's another response to Chris Mortensen, when I look at the delivery, it's low. Now, Chris Palmer, who is his coach with the Houston Texans, is working on him delivering the ball over the top. So there's one for Mort as well, Mel.
I have to go.
I got your back, my brother. I'm going to defend Mort, but I got your back.
A standpoint of if you're a golfer and you go with a natural swing, it just feels better. Let's go back to New York.
right, Susie, Merrill, Johns, thank you very much. And so the extended family of David Carr from Bakersfield, California, hoping that he can do what another Fresno State quarterback did, win a Super Bowl, and that's in Trent Dilfer. You see his family. I don't know if you have a shot right now, but how about a young man, his wife is Melody, who you see the huge family up there. His son is Austin. Now, this is long before he knew, okay, Houston Texans. You talk about a guy that's going to be the franchise quarterback for the Texans, and his son is named the same as the capital of the state. It's pretty good. It's that's what we call marketing, Jim. You guys knew a little bit about that, didn't you?
A little bit. Jerry was a marketing genius.
So the Houston Texans have David Carr, and now the Carolina Panthers are on the list. A team that won its opening game last year. That's the good news. That was in the summer. The bad news is they went 0 for the fall and 0 for the winter. They went 1-15. Hence a whole new regime with Carolina. Hence John Fox's coaching and not George Seifert, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what's on the clock now. We anticipate it's going to be Julius Peppers, the unbelievably gifted athlete from North Carolina. But now, here we are, Carolina. Should they go, and look, this is a hometown product A, Julius Peppers. This is a guy who could be, and you don't ever want to compare it to a greatest ever, Lawrence Taylor, but we've heard that. Should you go with defense here, it's a defensive coach, or do you go with Harrington with Chris Wenke there? That's not an easy choice, Jimmy.
Boomery, I know that he's a hometown guy and he's local for Carolina on and on, but there are some mixed reviews on Peppers as far as does he play hard every down? Can he play hard for 16 weeks and 16 ball games? Can he do those things? He's a basketball player. He didn't have spring training. On and on. There are questions here. Whereas they might say Quentin Jammer, he is a slam dunk. So this guy might be great, but at the number 2 pick, I don't want a Mike 2. I want somebody who's going to do it.
Mel, is he a Mike 2? Or is he a definitely can do? I mean, here's a guy that was on a Final Four basketball team a couple of years ago for the University of North Carolina. So athletic ability, we know that already.
Well, he has that, and I get a little tired of hearing the lack of productivity. I've heard that for the last 3 months. Everybody's kind of bashing Julius Peppers, saying he didn't do anything in the big games. He wasn't productive. Dwight Freeney had 17 sacks this past year. He broke the single-season sack record of Julius Peppers when he was a third-year sophomore, and he had 15. You watch him, 6'6" and a quarter, 285 pounds, and moves like an outside linebacker. Tremendous agility, unbelievable quickness. So the productivity was there in the ACC. This kid rose to the level, played some strong games against quality opposition. Later in the year, he did tail off, and that was a concern. You would have liked to see him pick up the pace and dominate down the stretch. He didn't. That was the only thing you could say about Peppers. But the prior productivity, the prior dominance was already there. That's why I kept Julius Peppers at number 1 on my board all year. Never to push him back, knowing that he has done it. Maybe he was looking a little bit ahead to the pro level, knowing he was coming out as a junior. Maybe concerned a little bit about injury. Bottom line is, John Fox had Michael Strahan as a left defensive end. This kid could be outstanding as a pass rusher. As a guy can be a complete performer at defensive end. I think you look at Julius Peppers and you say, yeah, you'd like that Bruce Smith, the guy come in right away and dominate. It may take him a year, Boomer, but I'd say 2 years from now, Julius Peppers will be getting after quarterbacks on a regular basis.
Well, if that's the case, Carolina will not be 1-15. The pick is in. Let's go up to the podium and rejoin Commissioner Paul Tagliabue.
With the second choice in the 2002 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Julius Peppers, defensive end from North Carolina.
So a new beginning, if you will, for the Carolina Panthers. They select a hometown product, if you will, Julius Peppers. They select a guy who, well, the head basketball coach at North Carolina when he was a senior and being recruited was Dean Smith, who knows a bit about winning. I'm not saying he's a great football scout, but Dean Smith said, this is a kid who wants to be great. And that comes as a pretty good accolade from a pretty good coach and a pretty good judge of talent.
Well, and Panthers coach John Fox told me, he said, you don't play basketball, Division I football, with a relatively high-level success, and you're not a competitor? Come on. I mean, John, this guy is young. Yes, he will struggle some, but, boy, you talk about upside in a player. This guy's got tremendous upside.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing here is the individual coaching. If he gets the individual coaching to get him going, game in and game out, because he hasn't gone through a full year of football.
Right.
He gets the individual coaching. Now, all the potential's there, and he can be a great player.
Well, plus, for me personally, I mean, you have your choice of Sergeant Peppers, Dr. Peppers, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. And a guy who likes some Red Hot Chili Peppers on his marinara sauce every now and then is our Sal Palantonio. Sal is in Washington with a little news on Julius Peppers. Although, here he is, Sal, what do you got?
Well, I like a little pepper sauce on my marinara, don't forget. But I'll go with Sergeant Pepper's, Boomer. The reason why John Fox, and I talked to John Fox, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers this morning, the reason why he took Julius Peppers there, he said, there is just too much potential upside for Julius Peppers. And this is a team, don't forget, that was 31st, ranked last in the league in defense last year. And in their short history, they've never had a defensive lineman in double digits in sacks. So Peppers was a no-lose situation for them, and they're taking him with that second pick, as you saw. Don't forget also, at 1-15, they needed to re-energize their fan base, and a local hometown guy can do that, Boomer.
Another thing, and thank you, Sal, and I'm glad that we agree on marinara sauce. Very important. As we look now at Chris Fowler with David Carr. Chris, you've enjoyed watching him play at Fresno State, and all of us are going to enjoy the next 12 or 15 years. Get a What's going through his head? He knew this was coming, but yet he still had to have butterflies, huh, Chris?
Exactly. We're going to talk biomechanics in just a second. That's been a hot topic. But, David, this has been a formality, as Chris mentioned, for a couple of weeks. You get the contract, you got the house, you got some furniture already down there in Houston. But you told me a few minutes ago, still, when it hit you, it was big.
Yeah, it was. We were coming in, and I was thinking it'd be just a formality, but this is something you dream about, getting to walk up and get to meet Mr. Tagovailoa in this kind of way, and, get to go through the whole process and have the Giant and the Jets fans out here, something you see on TV every year, so it's exciting.
You come to high school, you weigh 105 pounds, you're 5'4", you're like honorable mention, all Bakersfield when you leave high school. It's a pretty incredible journey to the #1 pick in a franchise's history.
It's just something, it's hard work, and that's something that my dad's instilled in me, and faith in God and faith in yourself, and believing that you can get to where you want to go. A lot of people didn't think the first pick could come out of Fresno State or out of Bakersfield, California, but, it shows what hard work can do, and believe in yourself and in God, so it's been exciting.
Well, the team loves your maturity and the fact that you're so grounded, but all the hype, all the money, in a quiet moment, do you ever wonder to yourself, am I really worth all this fuss and all this cash?
I haven't had a quiet moment. That's the only thing. If I'd had one, then, there's a lot of things I get to think about. I haven't had a time to even, watch any of my film from the season. It's just been a whole onslaught of things that's happened, and, it's been great. The whole ride's been fun. I'm glad my family's here to enjoy it with me. I'm actually more excited for them than I am anything else.
It's appropriate in Houston to talk launch point, where you throw inside them over the top. Do you work with Chris Palmer? Do you see that as an issue at all when the naysayers look at your delivery and see flaws?
We're going to work on everything we can in practice, and, footwork also. There's a lot of things that I want to do as a player to get better that way, and like you said, mechanically, we're going to work on a lot of things in practice, but when it comes down to it in the games, I want to go off my instinct and make everything, second nature. I don't want to have to think when I get on the field. I just want to play like I've been playing since I was little.
All right, well, watch closer to see if you play right away. You showed a lot of patience at Fresno State, but I don't think the Texans fans are going to be that patient. They're going to want to see you on the field, and wish you the best luck to you and your family.
Thanks a lot.
David Carr, #1 pick of the Houston Texans.
All right, Chris, Mike Tirico here at the draft as well. Speaking of impatient fans, there are plenty in Detroit, where the Lions were 2-14 last year in the first year with Marty Morningwig as the head coach and Matt Millen running the football operation. They are at the pivot point of this 2002 draft. It's right here and now with the Lions on the clock. Do they take Joey Harrington, the Oregon quarterback, knowing their quarterback is Mike McMahon, 5th-round pick last year, ran around a lot, won one of his starts, got the team a couple of wins, which he didn't have before that, but most importantly, has never, at college or the pro level, is 1 year, completed over 50% of his passes. Lions are going to a new stadium. There's no new stadium honeymoon. The attitude is bad. They may need to make an impact. William Clay Ford and William Ford Jr., Bill Ford, the owners of the team, were there yesterday for the draft meetings. So is Joey Harrington going to be their selection? That's what we wait on as the Lions are on the clock. So the pivot point of the draft is coming up. Stay with us as we continue. The Harrington family watches in Oregon, and the Lions fans watch in Southeast Michigan. The draft continues at pick 3 in a minute.
Detroit Lions on the clock with the 3rd overall pick of the first round, but the Carolina Panthers have just stayed in state and selected Bailey, North Carolina product, and of course, former Tar Heel Julius Peppers with the 2nd pick overall. Julius, excited to be about 3 hours from your hometown with the Panthers, and a team that definitely needs a pass rush, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. I think I can help out. I think I can come in and help right out. It's good to stay at home around my family and friends so they can come see me play.
You've heard the naysayers, the obvious physical skills, but people say, does Julius play with enough passion, enough tenacity every down? Can you learn that? Is that something that you see as something you have to work on?
That's not really one of my concerns. That's something that's been feeding itself. One person says it, then everybody gets along and says the same thing. I'm not worried about that at all. I know I can play on this level, so that's not a concern for me.
You got 32 members of your family and various friends here, most of them up from Bailey. You're going to sell a lot of tickets down in Charlotte. Wish you the best of luck. Julius Peppers. Boomer?
Special guy, Chris, obviously. And thank you, Julius. Thank you, Chris. Just a couple of notes. 3 straight years now we've had a defensive lineman go in the top 3. You don't have it all the time. Peppers here, Gerard Warren last year to Cleveland, and Courtney Brown the year before to Cleveland. That's why Cleveland has a good line. Of course, North Carolina could use them on the floor. Doherty's team went, about 8-20 this year, but he'll be in the National Football League. And one note on Carr, as we move to Joey Harrington's debate now. In 1968, for your trivia buffs, there was another Carr in the first round, Fred Carr, linebacker who went to Green Bay. See, we want to get you that stuff as well. So now the clock really begins for this 2002 draft. Detroit is on the clock, a little over 6 minutes to go. Joey Harrington is available. They have Mike McMahon as quarterback. Dallas would like to make a trade. Here are the quarterbacks, Charlie Batch and Detmer, and Batch and McMahon and Detmer, and, well, they lost their first 12 games. If you're Detroit, Jimmy Mort, do you have to look at Harrington?
Yeah, you got to look at Harrington. McMahon showed some speed last year. He scrambled around, won a game or so. But you've got to have a quarterback in there that's going to make the fewest poor decisions, not the most great plays. And Harrington is smart. He makes great plays at the end of the game to win them. They've got to go after the quarterback, because if you don't have a winning quarterback, as I've said before, you're not going to win in the NFL.
What could be going on right now?
Well, right now, we've already had a debate here between Marty Morningwig, the head coach, and the general manager, Matt Millen, with the owners weighing in here, William Clay Ford Jr. in particular, siding with Morningwig, take Harrington. But obviously, they're on the clock. Matt Millen wants to listen to all offers. So now you start talking about the Daniel Snyder with the Redskins trying to get up there. Maybe San Diego trying to get a swap there to take somebody else like a Mike Williams. But right now, I think Millen listening to offers, but if they stay with this pick, it's got to be Harrington. I'll be surprised if it is. Quentin Jammer's a good corner, but is he Deion Sanders? If you're not Deion Sanders, it's hard to take a corner this high.
Let's outline what Detroit's going through. Not only do they pick it on the trade, See, if they go, let's say, down to Dallas at 6, let's say you're the guy making the trade. You hope Buffalo won't pick a quarterback at 4. I mean, you hope. You know San Diego's not. So do you sweat that half hour profusely? What happens if you actually make that move and you're Detroit? Hoping to get Aaron.
Remember, I talked to Al Davis last night, and he was trying to move up and get other players. He got those 2 number 1s, et cetera, et cetera. And he said everybody is so afraid to make a trade because of you guys. He said the media is going to, really come down on the individual if they trade out of a spot because they traded away from a good player. Well, they might be able to pick up a couple of good players, but they're afraid to trade right now.
Yeah, but
now with Detroit could get cute on this. They get too cute and move down and lose the quarterback. They might pick up another player, but they might lose the guy that's going to win them a bunch of ball games.
I don't think Al's worried about what the media says about him, however, okay? That's not one guy that we're going to influence
My man Al.
one bit. Mel, we want to look at what? At Harrington?
Well, I think when you're picking third, Chris, you got to get the third, second, or first player on your board. The third highest rated player on my board is Joey Harrington. I think with that said, Detroit internally, Marty Morningwig, an offensive guy, has had Mike McMahon for a year. He has to see, okay, evaluate McMahon. Is he a leader? Is he a guy that's revered by those teammates? Does he have a future? And forget him as a 5th-round pick. It doesn't matter. He has to make that assessment. If he feels McMahon's the guy, don't worry about where he was selected. Joey Harrington deserves to go in this general area. But if you feel you have the right guy in McMahon, I would trade down. If I didn't feel, and I'm Marty Morningwig and Matt Munn, that McMahon is my guy, obviously Joey Harrington has to be the pick. But this is an internal decision that Marty Morningwig in particular has to make regarding not just Joey Harrington. We know what he can do and what he's capable of, but Mike McMahon is pivotal. Sure, he completed less than 50% of his passes. That was at Rutgers with limited supporting cast. 46% at Detroit. He's a rookie. So I think Mike McMahon, more so than Joey Harrington, is the key in this whole equation.
Well, the thing about this debate that's going on there between Morningwig and Millen, why would the coach win out over the general manager, who's also got the title of team president with Matt Millen there? I think what happens here is you got Morningwig with great passion for a guy, the quarterback, Joey Harrington, whereas Matt Millen, he likes Harrington, he likes Quentin Jammer a lot, but he doesn't have a passion for either one of those guys. I think when you have one guy who has a passion for it, and now ownership comes in, and ownership should have the long-term, long-range vision involved here. Ownership is going to say, that's the case, I want the quarterback, and our coach has a passion for that guy. And, oh, by the way, we might need one, although Mike McMahon's got a lot of physical skills.
We're not thinking, but you don't get through the season with one quarterback anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If McMahon, is going to be a good quarterback, and he develops, and he has Harrington, and he develops, who's to say they can't trade one and make a bonanza?
Well, what could happen? Wait a minute. You know what might happen? It could be Troy Aikman, Steve Walsh. They're about the same. Give me a what? 1, 2, 3?
1, 2, 3 for Walsh.
Steve Walsh, Troy Aikman, Steve. Hey, you're right on, man. I want to play poker with you.
Well, Morningwig was in Green Bay there for a while, and he was there when they had Favre and Mark Brunell and Ty Detmer, and it's okay to develop those guys, but I'd be surprised if Harrington isn't here, if not to Detroit, to somebody else.
Let me just add one thing as there's a minute and a half to go. Buffalo watching very interestingly because will their phones be ringing if Harrington isn't picked? If he is picked? So their phone, they go immediately right out of the garage in the passing lane as soon as we hear from the commissioner.
With the third choice in the 2002 draft, the Detroit Lions select Joey Harrington, quarterback from Oregon.
Hey!
Good pick.
Hey, look, Detroit needs to win. It took years to fix the Bears. We didn't think that was possible. The next reclamation project that the National Football League needs is Detroit. Now, I don't know if he's going to be Bobby Lane. I don't know if you want him to be Bobby Lane in some regards, but let's go here. And the Lions, in my opinion, the right thing.
Without question. And remember, this doesn't cut McMahon out of there.
No.
I mean, he's a good player, and you can't have enough good players, especially good quarterbacks. Let these two young guys develop. Now, I think the two most important things now is have a quarterback coach, and I know the head coach is working with the quarterbacks, but have a quarterback coach, and then on top of that, have a good offensive line.
Well, the Detroit Lions kept everybody waiting, and they're going to go with Harrington. And let's go up to the headset. Jaws, what are your thoughts?
Hey. Well, Boomer, absolutely, this is the correct pick for the Detroit Lions. When you look at a team, and we heard Coach Josh say it a few moments ago, you don't need a great quarterback to win a championship, but you need a quarterback that can manage a football game. Joey Harrington knows how to manage a football game. He can make all the throws, and mechanically, he's very sound. First, focus on Harrington's feet. He has quick, lively feet and gets set up in a hurry. It is critical in the NFL to get a deep drop as quickly as possible, keeping distance between himself and the big bodies up front. He has great balance, and his feet are always moving, allowing him to quickly get his body in a throwing position. Now look at the ball position. He holds it just under his chin and never drops it below his waist. He has no wasted motion in his delivery. Finally, look at the power in his release. He drives through the throw on this seam route. This is a firm stick throw, 30 yards on a rope, right in stride for the touchdown. If you look at Harrington's feet and throwing mechanics, then I believe he has a tremendous upside in the NFL. Harrington may not have the great arm strength, but his arm is good enough. And what I love about the guy is those fourth quarter rallies. You know, in the National Football League, how many games come down to that 2-minute drive? Well, Harrington has showed the ability to win those games when his team is behind. I love this pick, and it's a great fit for Marty Morningweg's offense. And let's look at what he will do to Detroit. Watching Detroit last year and talking to Marty Morningweg, they struggled because they couldn't run their whole offense. They only run about 50% of it, because in the West Coast offense, you have to have a quarterback that is mobile. You can move. Doesn't mean he runs around now. There's a difference. A guy you can move launching pads, move to the right a little bit, move to the left, execute your offense there. Now they can use the entire offense with a quarterback like this. It's a good kickstart for Detroit.
And it's so difficult to make that change from that hulking running game to the West Coast offense. They gutted the receiving core, and now they have a new quarterback. The 2002 draft rolls on. They're happy outside of Portland. Joey Harrington is on his way to Detroit. We'll talk to him when we come back.
Gone. Now the Bills have about 10 minutes to circle a wagon, maybe with New England, circle a wagon with, well, we're going to talk about 2 or 3 players who are optimum for Buffalo, a team that won just 3 games last year. You know we'll have our views on that, but right now, Joey Harrington's been picked by Detroit. He's in Portland with our Bob Holtzman. Bob?
Thank you, Chris. You know, Joey Harrington, you had told me yesterday you thought you'd go somewhere between 3 and 18. You went 3. How do you feel?
I'm thrilled. It was honestly a huge shock to me. I was just about to sit down and wait for the Lions to pick somebody else, and I got a phone call, and that's where I ended up. So I'm thrilled to be there.
You visited Detroit. It was one of the many cities you visited. What do you recollect from your stop there?
Oh, incredible facilities, incredible facilities. They just built a new football department, and they're building a new stadium. The coaching staff was very friendly. It just seemed like a very well-run organization, an organization that is on the rise and is doing some good things for the future.
Head coach Marty Morningweg, obviously a quarterback guru. How do you feel about playing for him?
I'm absolutely thrilled. I'm honestly shaken right now. This is very unexpected to me, and I'm just happy to be able to get out there and start playing again.
Now, a lot has been made about you not going to New York for this draft. How was it spending this with your family and getting the news side by side with them?
This is perfect. This is where I wanted to be. My family has been such an instrumental part of my career at Oregon, and they were one of the biggest reasons why I stayed in state for college, and I couldn't think of a better way than to spend it with them.
Joey Harrington, thank you very much for your time, and certainly congratulations at this point. Joey Harrington will be leaving the state of Oregon for the first time in his life now, moving to Detroit, Michigan. Chris, back to you.
All right, Bob. All right, Joey, congratulations. So 2 quarterbacks in the top 3 picks here as Joey Harrington, 2017, he's 6 INTs last season. We just know what he did. And actually, the best Harrington little note before we move on to the Buffalo Bills, a team which we follow a little bit. Last 28 starts, Joey Harrington, 25 wins. Hello. And now the Buffalo Bills, a team that used to win all the time. A team that is not drafted in the top 10 since the 80s. Top 10, not even 4th. A team that with Tom Donahoe in his second year running the draft, and the team and president, a team that with Greg Williams in his second year and his staff had to undo, and now they hope to move forward. They're a team that has some building blocks, specifically at wide receiver. They're a team that does not yet have a quarterback, so therefore, the Bledsoe trade may be investigated one last time in these 7.5 minutes. Although, again, I told you all week long, division trade, I wouldn't bet on.
No, and the other thing is that the Patriots would love to swap here from 32 to 4, what have you, but the Bills already have a conditional number 1 on the table for next year. I think a second-round pick maybe the Bills would be willing to give up, and that conditional number 1, hoping that might get it done. But certainly they are entertaining. I know this, but the Bills feel they got to come out today with a quarterback, a veteran one or a drafted one.
Here's something to keep an eye on as the next 4 or 5 hours go. Ramsey now becomes the 3rd quarterback. We're not going to get into this now, but these teams like Carolina, like Buffalo, if you can get their quarterback and are picking early in the 2nd, might wait a la San Diego with Drew Brees last year, or might move up in the bottom of the 1st. That's a later entry. But if you're going to ask me, that cab driver, wait a minute, the meter running, they got to replace their offensive line.
Yes,
okay.
yes, they do.
It's got to be Mike Williams. Okay,
yes.
Let's find out.
4th choice in the 2002 draft. The Buffalo Bills select Mike Williams, tackle from the University of Texas.
How did you know?
That cab was late arriving. I got to tell you, there must be a lot of traffic here in New York and Buffalo. That cab driver left Buffalo at 6 a.m. He just got here now.
I heard he got a flat tire.
He did. I heard it was a flat tire. But, they don't say this about cabbies. They know how to get to their destination. So Mike Williams, big offensive tackle. And Jimmy, you can't run in this league without a big left tackle.
You got to have the big boys up front, and without question, in Buffalo, in that weather up there, as you would know, you got to have the big boys up front. You got to run the ball, and obviously, he had the edge on McKinney. That's what most of the coaches and scouts said. He had the edge on McKinney as far as the run blocking and the toughness. McKinney's a great player, and some of the teams had him above. But Williams, the only knock that we heard on him all through the league was the ACL ligament. They may have to have an operation, but that's not going to hurt his career. May put him out for a short time.
I mean, they had interesting picks. Say Mike Williams at tackle, Haynesworth, which we'll get into. Great upside on the defensive line, but. And then there's Roy Williams, who's a safety, but you pick a safety with the 4th overall pick in the draft. I mean, some yes, and I know Tom Donahoe probably said, yeah, he's a great football player, but so is just Mike Williams. Williams or McKinney at tackle on your board now?
I had Williams, I had a McKinney. Moved McKinney ahead of Williams when the knee injury question surfaced, and then went back to Williams when all those questions by the medical people in the NFL were answered, most of which positively, but some maybe were still a little bit concerned. I think if you look at the restructuring of the Buffalo Bills offensive line, they bring in Trey Teague, Marcus Price, they drafted Jonas Jennings last year. He's did a good job at right tackle. Mike Williams will say, well, right tackle. He protected the blind side of Chris Sims, the southpaw quarterback. He also had prior experience at left tackle early on with the Longhorns, and more the knee. Late September against Texas Tech, hyperextended, the knee injury surfaced as a concern. How much of a concern was it? Were some teams taking him off the board, moving him down the board? What was the reaction of the majority of teams in the NFL board?
Well, I heard there were 4 or 5 teams that took him off the board, but you said late September. He got hurt in late September, played the whole year without any problems, and if something happens down the line, and some people say we told you something, he'll leave after that. The one thing about it is, and Mike Williams, I talked to a lot of offensive line coaches who made the evaluation. I think 90% of them like Williams over McKinney. They like that tenacity, physical. And I think if you're in Buffalo, listen, you got to smash mouth some people, and I think Mike Williams is perfect for that.
Yeah, he's got the toughness that you want in an offensive lineman. You like to have an offensive lineman with a defensive lineman's mentality, and that's exactly what he's
more
got.
complete. That's what you're ready to go. McKinney. McKinney's a great pass protector. He can sustain and be more aggressive as a run blocker, maximize that physical ability. Mike Williams is 6'5.5", 375 pounds, and he does just that, as you saw from the highlight film of Mike Williams. So the polish, ready to come in immediately and be a starter. That's certainly Mike Williams, if the knee holds up.
Hey, look, 10 years ago, picking much lower because they were the AFC champs 4 straight years, the Bills picked John Fina, who started, as a contributor on the line, at the tackle, and a Pro Bowler for 10 years. If they can get anything near that, and they think they will out of Williams, well, that's a pretty good way to go. When we return, we'll visit live with Matt Millen on teleconferencing. He pulled the trigger for the duck. We'll be back.
Dallas awaits after the Chargers pick. Welcome back to the NFL Draft in New York. Quick video teleconference from Detroit. Matt Millen, President, General Manager of the Detroit Lions. Matt, were the phones ringing for a trade possibility when you got to the 3rd pick?
Not as much as you would think. As a matter of fact, there were a few calls, but kind of a quiet draft room, to be honest with you.
Joey Harrington said that he was surprised. That means you guys put up a good smokescreen. What was the internal debate? Was there a strong camp for Harrington and a strong camp for another player, or was it unified?
Well, it was unified, to be honest with you. I mean, our scouts who have been working on this thing all season long, the Bill Tobin and his staff, it was unanimous in terms of where Joey Harrington would be. We have some needs, obviously, but I know this. I know in Detroit, I like what I have in Mike McMahon. I like now what I have in a young rookie. We are going to have a quarterback. That is not going to be an issue in Detroit. Ford Motor Company has a lot of good cars. We'll take good quarterbacks.
And try to build around that as you play in new Ford Field. Matt, we'll talk to you as the weekend goes on. Thank you.
All right, Mike, thank you.
Chris Berman, back to you.
Mike, Matt, thank you very much. Certainly, Matt, one of our easier interviews, I think, as the day. Yeah, subdued Matt Millen. We should see that Matt Millen when they won those couple of games at the end of the year. I'm sure quietly was like that in there. So now, with Mike Williams gone, San Diego had their dilemma that they took deep into the week, decided for them. And actually, I think that they were at dead heat between, look, Marty Schottenheimer, the new coach, John Butler, year 2 as general manager. Yes, we got to run the ball, which is what Buffalo needed to do, and did, which is what San Diego needed to do with Tomlinson, the outstanding rookie running back from a year ago. But you got to cover. And they didn't win a game from about Halloween on because they just couldn't stop anybody, especially through the air. So it's got to be Quentin Jammer.
Yeah, talking to Dean Spanos throughout the year and North Turner on and on, they struggled at cornerback. And a lot of people around the league, they compare Jammer to Charles Woodson playing right there with the Raiders. And so he's a quality defensive back. He can jam,
yes,
and he can run, and he makes big plays. It was really a quality pick.
So we've had the Houston Texans, and now this is the Texas portion of our show because we think Jammer next. His Texas Longhorn teammate Mike Williams just went to Buffalo. He's with Chris Fowler. Chris, hook 'em horns.
All right, Boomer, as your boy Quentin waits back there, we'll talk to the newest member of the Buffalo Bills. Chris, as you know, for the draft, fashion is very key. You might have the suit of the first round and the shoes of the first round. Ostrich and gator there, too, Mike?
Yeah, I like them.
Offensive lineman with a mean streak. As the story goes, you picked up your older brother when you were a 9-year-old, didn't know your own strength, and dropped him on the TV, knocked him cold. Do you have that mean streak that scouts always look for in an offensive lineman?
I have that mean streak. I turn on the field, and I just want to dominate every defensive player that I go up against. So I got to have it.
This is your first trip to the big city, but this guy was born for the bright lights. Big smile, big personality. I mean, you seem to be, a TV show in the making. Are you looking forward to all this, all the trappings of a first-round pick?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So it's still going to be new to me. I'm still kind of a little jittery, nervous a little bit, but I'm going to adjust very well.
Small-town guy who has taken New York City by storm here, headed off to upstate New York and the Buffalo Bills. I know you're anxious about your guy, Quentin. Is he going next, you think?
My prediction that I think San Diego, I think, may take Quentin Jammer.
Right. Everybody's making predictions on the Chargers time here.
I like it. Maybe he has a San Diego cab driver that he knows, Mike Williams. Speaking of the Buffalo Bills, let's go now to the president/GM, one-time standout ESPN.com contributor, white shirt Tommy Donahoe, who joins us now via teleconferencing from Buffalo. And And Tom, as we join you, was your phone ringing off the hook really for about 4 or 5 different scenarios before Detroit took Harrington and then while you were on the clock, or was it not as wild as we might have anticipated?
It really wasn't wild at all. We didn't receive a phone call this morning while we were on the clock, and it probably wouldn't have mattered anyway, Boomer, because we were unanimous in the choice of this young man. We think he's an outstanding prospect, and one of our main off-season priorities has been to try to address and improve the toughness of our offensive line. We think Mike Williams will definitely help us do that.
What jumped at you weeks, maybe months ago about this young man, maybe even comparing him to tackles who have gone very high in drafts before, not necessarily that you drafted?
Probably his athletic ability for a big man. He's very light on his feet, and he plays on the offensive line like a defensive lineman, which he was originally at the University of Texas. So we liked his attitude, we liked his toughness, and we liked his disposition.
Knee injury not a factor, obviously, for you all along, correct?
No, it really wasn't. I think that got overblown. Our doctors checked him out thoroughly. We talked to the orthopedic doctor at the University of Texas. There really was nothing to it. And anybody who had seen Mike work out at the combine, there's no way he has a knee injury.
Was the Drew Bledsoe scenario, of course it was real, but was it as heated as many thought it was, or was that just hoping, but you kind of in the back of your mind doubted that it would get done, at least at this time?
Well, you never know. I think you should just stay tuned.
It means it's still alive, Boomer.
Well, hey, you never put a period at the end of the sentence. I've known you a little while. You don't put that period at the end of the sentence while the ink's still wet, right, Tom?
Exactly.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, the meter's running on the cab. We'll see you a little bit later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Tom Donahoe, he knows what he's doing, having had a big hand in the building of this Steeler team that we're seeing compete year after year after year to get to the Super Bowl. The Chargers have the card, and here are the Chargers.
With the 5th choice in the 2002 draft, the San Diego Chargers select Quentin Jammer, cornerback from the University of Texas.
Quentin Jammer, a Charger. They need cover, and what a great name for a defensive back. I mean, you talk about reinstituting the bump and run with a guy named Quentin Jammer. He's your man. Now, one of the best pure corners that we've seen in recent years. Obviously, number 5 pick. Where does he stand? Champ Bailey, some others who have seen his high.
I think he's more in the lines of what Starks and Bailey McAllister. I think maybe not up to the level of Champ or Chris, and certainly not up to the level of Charles Woodson or Deion Sanders. What you have is a 5'11 and a half, 205-pounder who was a free safety. Tough kid, excellent in run support, great open field tackler. And I think when you look at Quentin Jammer, came back from the shoulder surgery to put together 2 outstanding seasons at cornerback. And Quentin Jammer really could have come out last year and been a mid-first rounder. The reason why he went back was to address the skills and the techniques that are necessary to move on to the National Football League and succeed. He understood 1 year at corner is not enough. He needed that 2 full seasons. He got it. I think when you look at Quentin Jammer now, solid. He certainly upgrades the Chargers, who had major problems at corner. I will say this, it would have been interesting. San Diego was looking at Mike Williams. He was off the board. Bryant McKinney not the dominant run blocker yet. So I think Marty Schottenheimer audibilized away from offensive tackle to corner with Quentin Jammer.
Well, he wanted him to play right now. McKinney will go pretty soon, but I think they were pretty clear on if it's not Williams, it's Jammer. That was pretty clear for San Diego. Never really a dead heat, so their decision was made for them. It might have been Jammer had they both been available. So they got themselves a heck of a player. That means the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock, and the Longhorn flag flying proudly because Mike Williams, now Quentin Jammer from Texas, have gone picks 4 and pick 5 in the NFL. Dallas Keat and big hitter. There's the Longhorns part. And now the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock with about 10.5 minutes being regaled here in New York by the Cowboys. But you know, Giants fans, Cowboys, Jimmy, you heard it. Let's see what they're thinking in Big D. Ed Werder, good afternoon.
Well, Boomer, there was some rejoicing by Roy Williams up in Norman, Oklahoma, about 3 hours from the Cowboys facility when Quentin Jammer went off the board because Williams has expressed devoutly his intention and desire to play for the Cowboys at strong safety. And now it looks like the Cowboys will certainly be in position to take him, although Jerry Jones in the draft room has been on the phone twice now, once after Buffalo pick and then after Jammer went off the board with teams interested in moving in front of Minnesota for this pick. Could the Cowboys move back to like 8 with Kansas City and still get Roy Williams? That's a decision that Jerry Jones is trying to make right now.
All All right, Ed, thank you. We will watch. It's a little under 10 minutes. Jimmy, is it something about that room? You just have to get on the phone?
Got to trade. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all, Boomer, if they would move on back. I don't think they need to move back too far. But if they move back 3 or 4 or 5 spots, they'll still get him a good player. And they are looking at Roy Williams. Also, Buchanan. Buchanan in Miami is a heck of a cornerback and really might be better man-to-man coverage than Jammer. So there's going to be some good players there if they move back.
Well, let me just ask you a question about a safety. Now, Roy Williams is a phenomenal player and a special safety. Special. But yet, isn't this, some people would say, he's 6th pick of the draft for a safety. No matter who he is, that's not a position that you normally spend that high on. Do you agree with that or do you disagree with that?
Well, he's a special safety. I think if you're looking for a safety to put on your team, you can find safeties late in the draft. Half the safeties you pick late in the draft, and half the ones starting, and a bunch of them are free agents. So you can get your safety, but he is special. He makes a lot of big plays. He's a close to the line of scrimmage type of guy. And if you did that, if Dallas took him, they would have to put Woodson back deep. Now, Woodson can play deep coverage.
Right.
He just signed a new contract. He's going to be there a while. Still a great player. Had one of his best years last year. So they're stacking a little bit if they take Roy Williams, but you can't ever have too many good players.
And if he's the best on your board, you just do it, right?
Yeah, you just do it if he's the best player. And he is a playmaker.
And speaking of playmakers, San Diego got one with Quentin Jammer. You talk about a name for a position, Chris Fowler. I don't know if it gets any better than that.
Boomer Jammer is a great name for a corner who loves to stand up at the line and use his strength on receivers. You're known, Quentin, as a guy who'd rather break some receivers' ribs than break up passes. Is that kind of an accurate description of your style as corner?
Very accurate. It's very accurate. I like to come up and hit people, so we get back into some cover too, and I like to watch the tight ends creep out in the flat, and unexpectedly I just run up and pop them.
As a corner, you're tossed out there on an island against the best receivers in the world. Now you know it's a big jump from college to the NFL. Any doubts about your ability to blanket those guys?
No doubts in my abilities. I'm always confident in my abilities as a player and as a corner, so it's going to be a tough step up, but like I said, I'm confident in my ability, and I'm ready to take the next step.
Now, a lot of guys say this after the fact. That's where I wanted to play. That was my first choice. I happen to know for a fact that San Diego, for various reasons, which you can explain, was your number 1 pick. Where'd he go?
It was my number 1 pick. Where to go? I mean, it's great weather. You have great coaches out there, and Dallas is my home state, and I would love to go there, but